Welcome, my name is Pamela Kearns from Peyote Dreams Jewelry Designs, and I'm back again for another edition of left-handed instructions. Today we're going to take a look at crimping. Now, crimping is the traditional way of joining beading wire to create necklaces and bracelets and anything else that you want to use that has a drape. So this item has been crimped, and you can see where we're going to talk about all these pieces, but you can see this is the crimp cover, wire guardian, a jump ring, the clasp, another jump ring, and then we reverse the order. The wire guardian and a crimp bead, or crimp cover, and within each of the crimp covers is a crimping bead. So what are all these individual components look like by themselves? Let's zoom out a little bit because I want to talk about all of the items. So this is beading wire. This is made by Softflex. There are a few brands on the market. Softflex is very, very well known. It comes in 3 weights: fine, medium, and heavy. This is medium weight, and to be honest, it is suitable for 99.9% of everything you do. I have found that with this weight, a 2mm crimp bead works best. Beading wire is not a metal wire. In fact, what it is multiple strands of very thin wire that's held together in a nylon coating. So this is what it looks like on its own. It does come in various colors. This is gray. You're also going to need some crimp covers. That's this little guy here. You're also going to need some wire guardians. The purpose of a wire guardian is to protect the nylon covering that surrounds all those thin strands of wire. So as I mentioned, the crimp bead, it's a 2mm crimp bead. Let's see, what else have we got here? We have our tools that we need. We do need crimping pliers. So a crimping plier, or a pair of pliers rather, has some holes or openings here. This particular one will crimp 2 sizes. We are going to use the middle one, which is a little bit smaller, but you'll notice these 2 holes tend to look like lips, sort of smiling lips. This one at the end is oval. We're going to be using this hole and this hole. We are also going to be using a pair of flush cutters, a pair of round nose pliers, and a pair of flat nose pliers. And of course, we're going to be using a length of beading wire and some beads. So let's zoom in a little bit and see let's start. So with our beading wire, we're going to pick up the crimp bead, and those openings that we saw earlier, we're going to go from the bottom and around and back through the other side. The top of the wire guardian is actually open. Okay, these are very small components. They're fiddly, and they do take a bit of practice. The little tail, you don't need a lot. I would say about 1 inch. And then you want to bring the bead up and include the tail inside the bead. Here we are, like that. So let's put it back so I can see it on my left. Okay, so notice that I've separated the wires just a little bit here. You want to make sure these wires do not cross. In other words, you don't want them going like that. You won't get a good crimp. Your crimping bead does not need to be all the way up. You're going to fill in this space a little bit with the crimp cover. But to crimp it now, we're going to put it into the center bottom channel like that. As I say, it's fiddly. Okay, and then squish down. And you can see what happens is that a divot is created in the center of the crimp bead. So now, that's halfway there. Crimping is a 2-step process. It was like this. We're going to now turn it so that we go into the outside hole and squish the two sides of the crimp together. That is now crimped. Okay, so let's test it. That's what we're going to use the round nose pliers for. Put it in there and give it a pull. Better that you know that it slips now than after you've made it and sold it or given it to somebody and they come back and say it fell apart. So test first. So this is ready to go. The crimp looks good, it's the right color, but let's put on the crimp cover and it will look like a bead. So this is how I typically hold it. And I'm going to bring the this sort of C shape together by pressing it gently from various sides so I can create what looks like a bead. Okay. Once it's on, it's extremely difficult to remove. You might as well just cut it and try again. So there. There's the crimp cover in place. And of course, at this point, let me zoom out again so you can see more of my board. At this time, you can then create your bracelet. So you can design your bracelet as you want. Keep in mind that your total length needs to include the space for the clasp and everything else. So you don't need me to watch. I'm not going to do a whole piece here. I'm just going to put on some beads and then I'll show you about doing the other end. The second end can be a little bit more fussy and more difficult. Okay, so we put on my beads and notice that little tail is sticking out. Well, I did test it, so I could cut it off, but if it ever did slip, it's better to leave it and just tuck it inside the beads. Sometimes the beads holes are too small and you will need to cut it. So we're going to pretend that we've got a full-size bracelet like here. So let's undo this just so you can see a little bit more. Okay. So we're now ready to crimp this end. So for that, I should have pulled out some stuff first. We need a crimp cover, a wire guardian, and a crimp bead. And you can see just how small they really are. Okay. So we have all of our components again. Let's zoom in so you can see a little bit clearer. Okay, so we're going to slip on the crimp bead, put the wire guardian on just like we did before, out and around, back through. You can pull it a little bit closer. There we go. And then you also remember to put your bead, the tail back through the bead. Now, you do have all this space, so you do want to close it. First, I'm going to bring up a bead and put it through there. For the same reason that we put the bead end or the excess through a bead on the other side, we're going to do it on this side. Now, to close it up, you could certainly pull, but I found that if I used my round nose pliers and treated it like a pulley, it does pull up quite a bit easier that way too, and a little bit faster. Now, this is ready to crimp. I do want to mention one thing called ease. If you've ever had a bracelet or bought one or had one made and it doesn't go into a circle, that's because it's too tight. You'll notice that as it's a circle, everything is gathered up. When I straighten it out, there is a gap. That gap is necessary. Okay, so of course you don't want too big a gap, but the gap is necessary. So this is why this side is a little harder. It's more difficult not to get it crossed, and a little harder to try and separate the two wires. But here we are again, going to put it into the middle channel, squish, there it's folded in half, turn and squish the two halves together. Also, let's test. Better to test now and find out it's not slipping. Hey, it's good. And then we can put on our crimp cover. And using the flat nose pliers again, just take it from different sides very gently. Bring it around. Okay, that is our mini bracelet ready to go, and see, it still does come around. Our excess wire, we've tested it so we can trim it. When you trim it, make sure you're cutting the correct wire. Trust me, been there, done that. You don't need to do it too. Okay, there it is. Now to finish, we would be putting on, using jump rings, a jump ring on either end, and then a jump ring holding your clasp over here. As an accent, if you're making it for somebody you don't know exactly their size, you can add a little bit of chain to the jump ring on the opposite side of the clasp, and attach a bead similar that's within the bracelet using a simple loop or wrap loop. Okay, so that is all about crimping. Go ahead and practice and enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your comments. Bye-bye.